One fact I always find really interesting is that 80% of communication between human beings is actually nonverbal. So 20% is the actual words you say, and 80% is how you're saying it. Now, yesterday we covered tonality and pausing, so using your voice. But a big chunk of your nonverbal communication actually has to do with two other things. So obviously we've got the tonality, but we also have our body language. And the third that not a lot of people realize is our facial expression, which is one of the first things we learn to recognize as a baby. Well, the interesting thing about body language and facial expression is your brain actually has what's called neural anchors. Those neural anchors enable us to do something I call anchor actions, which is if you do this one little thing, everything else in your brain or body will follow suit. Let me give you an example of a neural anchor. I want you to try waving at 90 degrees, like you've just seen someone that you haven't seen for a long time that you like, and try not to smile while you do it. So go like this, but don't smile. Now, you probably might be able to do it, but it feels very strange, doesn't it? It's a weird thing to do. That's because our brain's used to doing both of those things at the same time. Well, the interesting thing about body language and facial expression and how they combine to make you a better communicator is that they're both very intertwined because you're used to doing those two things at the same time. So if I want to be sad, I'm going to look quite sad. Or if I'm going to look excited, I'm going to look excited. Well, the anchor action to controlling your body language and your facial expression is right here in your hands. Now, a funny fact about the hands is that it's actually the first thing that people look at when they meet you because they want to see if you've got a weapon or not. It's very subconscious. You don't notice people do it. But if you walked up to someone going, "Hey, mate, how you doing?" it's a little scary. So if we want to convey better body language and better facial expressions, all we have to focus on is our two hands. So the analogy that I use for how to focus on your hands while you're speaking is trumping. And look, some people may like Donald Trump, some people may not like Donald Trump, but either way, he got voted president. And in order to do that, you have to be able to inspire large groups of people. Well, one video I found on YouTube that I thought was really funny is somebody actually superimposed a cartoon accordion, and every time Donald Trump would move his hands in and out, it would play the accordion. And I could never unsee what Donald Trump does with his hands every time he speaks, because the whole thing was like, rah, 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 the whole time he was speaking. But doing that action, playing that pretend accordion, it actually gets people excited. So the idea of moving your hands like you're playing a fake accordion, i.e. trumping, really gives your audience a sense of excitement and hyperbole and really just thinking bigger. Remember, most people don't think big, so they like it when other people do it for them. So understanding that if you use the anchor action of moving your hands in an exciting or impressive way, i.e. up high and far apart, your face is naturally going to do the same thing, your posture is going to do the same thing, and more than likely your tonality is also going to do the same thing. Now, understanding how hands work is, it's not necessarily about using them just like Donald Trump and going, it's huge, it's going to be the biggest thing ever. You don't have to do that. But really understanding that there's actually three things you can do in terms of hand placement, where if you move them symmetrically, they'll incite a different emotion. So the first one that we covered, and this is probably the most important one, is if you want to generate excitement, you keep them up high here and you play your accordion up here. The second one is if you want to be composed and have people understand what you're talking about, you actually keep it in your midsection area. So moving your hands, and obviously not as violently, but just here, moving your hands like this makes people pay attention. And if you want to create a sense of negative emotion or people being let down, for instance, if you're telling a story, you drop them. So those are three things that you can do with your hands when you're speaking. Number one is trumping, number two is neutral trumping, and number three is dropping. And each one of those things will influence your audience much more than you realize. Give it a try for yourself.